Good morning. Today, this spot was supposed to be the fall. That would have filled in a lot of the gaps, explaining where we are today, where we used to be, and how we got there. We tried over and over to film it. We spent hours. The weather just would not cooperate. The sun would go in and out. Wind would howl. So I thought today I would tell you a little story. Really has nothing to do with Omni, but maybe it'll mean something to some of you about how wonderful our Heavenly Father is and how an earthly father and our Heavenly Father make a complete circle. So here goes. When I was 10 years old, I wanted a set of drums for Christmas. I wanted a set of Ludwig drums with Zelgian cymbals. And on Christmas morning, my dad, he had a set of drums there for me, he and my mom. And but it was kind of an inexpensive set, maybe bought out of the Sears catalog or Montgomery Ward's, something along those lines. And he said, Clay, this is the deal. If you actually learn to play the drums, your mom and I will be glad to buy you a set of Ludwigs, but we need you to learn to play these first. So I did learn to play them. Some people would argue that fact, but I did learn to play them and played them for years. And after 5-6 years, they ended up in the closet, and I sold them and picked up another set along the way when I was out of college, and another kind of inexpensive set, and continued to play. And over that time, I wanted to add to my Ludwigs with Zelgian cymbals and a set of cherry wood Ludwigs. Well, that was just kind of a hope. It wasn't even a very big deal to me. Thought I would do it one day. And so let me fast forward just a little bit. I was 28 years old. My father was dying of cancer. And I was visiting them in Dothan, and somehow we decided to get out of the house for a little while. He could only go for a few short minutes, and we ended up in a music store. And I was over in the display window, and I was looking at a beautiful pair of what I remember to be Ludwig drums, and I don't know what kind of cymbals. And my dad kind of eased over, and he said, "Oh, Clay," he said, "I owe you a set of drums. I promised you back then that I would buy you a set of drums." That was the last thing my father needed to be doing at this stage in his life and what was happening with him. And so I told him, I said, "Dad, I love you and I appreciate the offer, but there's just no need for you to buy me a set of drums." I'm going to fast forward a few more years. I had gone into the medical implant business. I had been in Mississippi. That's where I started in the business. I'd been asked to move back to Dothan and take over that territory. I can tell you exactly where I was. Anybody who's familiar with Dothan, we have a circle around the city called Ross Clark Circle. I was driving not far from the home where I grew up. On the radio was an ad about a new music store that had music and musical instruments, old and new. So I listened to that ad thinking nothing of it. I got to the stop sign, and that little voice I've come to know as the Lord's very clearly said to me, "Turn around and go to that store. I have your drums there." Now, even though I'd like to tell you I always recognize it, sometimes I doubt the voice of God, and if I'm just thinking. And so I literally said this. Out loud, I said to myself, "That's the dumbest thing I have ever heard." So I drove on forward a couple hundred more yards to the next stoplight, and the Lord said, almost giving me a hard time, He said, "I told you to turn around. I have your drums at that store." Well, now those drums to me meant Ludwigs, Zelgian cymbals, and cherry wood. I wasn't even sure that they made cherry wood drums anymore, but I thought, well, this has never failed me before. I'm going to turn around. So I did a U-turn on the circle, and I went down a couple of miles. I pulled into this store. I opened the door of the store. There was nobody out front, and I started walking toward the back. This guy met me about halfway, and he said, yeah, may I help you? And I said, well, I know this is going to be a crazy request, but you don't by chance have any cherry wood Ludwigs with Zelgian symbols, do you? He laughed. He said, yeah, I do. He said, there was a soldier at Fort Rucker who was about to be shipped overseas, and he bought in a set yesterday. You'd think I'd be getting used to it, but I'm still not used to that wonder of God. He sold them to me at a price way below what they were worth, and he actually bought the kind of inexpensive set, my second set of drums. So today, I sit on these drums. They sit in the corner of my sun porch. I play them fairly regularly. Still not much better than I was in the beginning, but I'll never let these go because I don't see drums when I look at these. I see a heavenly Father that remembered what my earthly father promised and was unable or should not have done. It wasn't even a big deal to me at that time. So he reached down, my list of prayers is a big old stack. He reached down somewhere in the middle or maybe even in the bottom, and he answered that prayer just to show me how much he loved me. I tell you that story because in this day and time, you might be really questioning, does our Heavenly Father really care about your desires and your wants? And as hard as it is to believe, He cares about every one of them. Thank you.